First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Welcome to WUFT News First at 5. I'm Ophelie Jacobson.
And I'm Kendall Brandt. Thanks for joining us. After several attempts, Artemis 1 launched from Kennedy Space Center early this morning. Our cameras were there and they captured the launch. So let's take you to Kennedy Space Center where it happened.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Its next stop, the moon. If this mission is successful, it will set the stage for Americans to return to the lunar surface in just a few years.
NBC's Chris Pallone is at Kennedy Space Center with the details.
It was an incredible scene as NASA finally was able to launch the Artemis 1 SLS rocket early this morning. The most powerful rocket ever launched by NASA lit up the entire night sky up and down the Space Coast. It also rattled for miles. People could feel it as the rocket lifted off under the night sky. NASA has been eager to launch this rocket for months now, but it's been delayed by both technical problems as well as not one but two hurricanes that hit this area over the last several weeks. Now, the Orion crew capsule, unmanned at this time, is heading for the moon. It will orbit the moon for a couple of weeks before returning to Earth. At one point, it will be about 300,000 miles from the Earth. That will be the furthest into deep space that a spacecraft intended for humans has traveled before. NASA officials are trying to use this as a test run. In a couple of years, they want to put astronauts in that capsule and have them orbit the moon. And then a year or two after that, they would like to see astronauts once again set foot on the lunar surface. They will try to establish some sort of base there so that NASA can then later explore deeper space, places like Mars, or even go to various asteroids. When this crew capsule starts to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere in December, they will be looking at the heat shield to make sure that it can withstand about 5,000 degrees upon re-entry. It will splash down in the Pacific Ocean and then be reused. That's a story from the Kennedy Space Center. I'm Chris Pallone, NBC News.
You know, Ophelia, a big factor into getting these rockets off the launch pad is the weather.
Absolutely, and as we've known in the past couple of months, weather has been the cause for some of these delays in getting that rocket off the launch pad. But it was picture-perfect climate in Cape Canaveral yesterday and this morning. But let's check in right now with WUFT's Shawn Humphrey to see what our weather here in Gainesville will look like tonight.
Well, being from Countdown County, Brevard County myself, I'm very familiar with launches getting scrubbed. But if the weather looked like it did outside in Gainesville right now, all the time in Melbourne, there would never be a problem with rockets getting up off the air. 67 degrees here in Gainesville, winds moving out of the north-northwest at 5 miles per hour. And that's very important when we see these low temperatures dropping. I'll tell you more in full weather, but guess what? These temperatures getting lower and lower as we go on to the overnight. Not quite at the overnight low around 1 a.m., but we are approaching those overnight lows. And we'll take a look at those in Alachua and Marion County. 47 degrees in Gainesville, mid to high 40s across much of the county. And as we look at our neighbors to the south in Marion, 48, 49, 50 degrees. Pretty uniform across the board. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Shawn. A University of Florida student arrested for threatening a TikTok star is now out on bail. WUFT's digital correspondent Camila Pereira joins us in the studio to explain the criminal case.
Microbiology and cell science major Ryan Christopher Marin was released from jail Friday. He's accused of making a death threat online against internet star Josh Richards. The post shows Richards bleeding from bullet holes and a fictional anime character depicted as Marin holding a gun. Richards was invited to speak on campus in June, but quickly canceled his visit as he was in fear for his life. UF police initially said the threat caused Richards to suffer a major financial loss, but it's clear if he still did after rescheduling his visit in September. Marin was charged with aggravated assault with intent to commit a felony. His next scheduled court appearance is set for December 15th. For the full story, visit WUFT.org.
Thanks, Camila. Tonight, the Gainesville City Commission is meeting to discuss the Gainesville Police K-9 Unit. The commission will review a full report by the GPD K-9 unit before deciding if they are going to eliminate the unit entirely. This meeting is in light of the public's call to retire the K-9s after the Terrell Bradley incident back in July. The K-9 unit's presentation will include comparisons to other units throughout Florida and a summary of the cases that required the use of a police dog. The hope for this meeting is to provide the commission with enough information to keep the unit. The commission has already canceled this meeting twice, once in September and again in October.
The Gainesville City Commission, speaking of which, passed legislation to add more bike lanes throughout the city. WUFT's Jake Reyes dug into the details of the new law to understand how it will change Gainesville.
Well, Kendall, it's no secret that pedestrian and bicyclist safety have been a focus in Gainesville recently. As a matter of fact, newly elected Mayor Humphrey talked about how he planned to address these issues when he's elected. Now, the Gainesville City Commission did approve a plan last month where they'd add bicycle lanes across the city, and I actually got the chance to talk to a cyclist about his reaction to that as I dissect about what's about to happen.
We're just a different kind of vehicle.
A vehicle with its rider sometimes considered as a pedestrian, not a driver.
Especially when I get on the sidewalk, especially when the bike lane gets very, very small. Sometimes it's almost invisible.
For 23-year-old Noah Mullins, biking to graduate-level English classes at the University of Florida is a stressful experience.
I do get scared of hitting a pedestrian. I do get scared that an electric scooter is going to hit me. I get scared that a car might sideswipe me if they're not looking.
That's why the City Commission is adding bike lanes across the city. On October 20th, commissioners unanimously approved the project so that bicyclists like Mullins can feel more safe. Similar projects have already been completed earlier this year in Midtown.
I'm on Northwest 15th Street leading up to West University Avenue, where these bike lanes were actually recently added. Now, the City Commission did vote to have these bike lanes be present across the town. So we're going to head downtown where we'll hopefully get a glimpse of what's to come in the future. Now I'm here in downtown Gainesville, where roads like the one right behind me may get a bike lane of its own, like the ones you just saw on West University Avenue, for bicyclists who want to feel a little bit more safe or just getting maybe a lunch at Bo Diddley Plaza.
According to Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, this year there were 86 bicycle crashes in Alachua County. 3 of them resulted in deaths. Before the legislation was passed, September saw the highest amount of bicycle crashes of the year at 18. Reyes Santos hopes that these numbers decrease when more lanes are added.
These changes will now affect our whole city instead of just in certain areas of our city.
Now, before the additions were approved back in October, we mainly saw these projects happening around Midtown. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we may see them around downtown as well, but however, Commissioner Reyes Santos told me that it may take 10 to 20 years before we see any significant changes in these areas. We'll see what happens as the next year unfolds. Reporting from the Gainesville City Hall, Jake Reyes, WUFT News.
Thanks, Jake. Well, you may be looking for a break from politics since midterm elections have finally wrapped up.
Yeah, but the 2024 presidential race is already heating up with one prominent politician announcing his run for the highest office in the land. Coming up on WUFT's First at 5, more on the announcement and why it's turning some heads.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Former President Donald Trump has officially launched his campaign for the 2024 presidential election. Last night, Trump formally launched his campaign from the ballroom of Mar-a-Lago. This will be his 3rd run for the White House. During his announcement, the former president commended his achievements in the Oval Office and defended the GOP's performance in the midterms. But he still believes there is progress to be made for the country.
I am running because I believe the world has not yet seen the true glory of what this nation can be. We have not reached that pinnacle, believe it or not. In fact, we can go very far.
Trump has already filed all of the necessary paperwork to begin this campaign.
And more on the future of Washington. Senator Mitch McConnell will remain the minority leader of the Senate after defeating a challenge by Florida Senator Rick Scott. In a secret ballot vote by Senate Republicans, 16 senators voted to keep McConnell as the GOP spokesman. Rick Scott was the first person to challenge McConnell as a leader due to a growing angst within the party after midterms. Scott believes the GOP needs to be more bold to secure seats, while McConnell blamed the midterm loss on the behavior of the candidates. McConnell is now on track to be the longest-serving Senate caucus leader in history.
At least 2 people were killed after remnants of a Russian missile landed in Poland. President Biden met with world leaders about the attack and expressed concern about the escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war. NBC's Bree Jackson is in Washington with more information about the emergency meeting that took place.
This morning, Poland's president says the missile blast that killed 2 people was not a deliberate attack. The incident had put Poland and its NATO allies on edge. The NATO Secretary General addressed the incident after an emergency meeting in Brussels.
Our preliminary analysis suggests that the incident was likely caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile fired to defend Ukrainian territory against Russian cruise missile attacks.
President Biden condemned Russia escalating its attacks against Ukraine, but added it's unlikely the missile was launched from Russia. Russia's defense ministry denied any involvement in the Poland strikes. Meanwhile, NATO members continue pledging their support for Ukraine.
We agreed that we need to stay vigilant, calm, and closely coordinated.
As the war escalates, President Zelensky vows we will survive everything. Ukrainian forces remaining defiant against Russian aggression.
Whatever they're planning, they will be crushed.
President Biden reassuring Ukraine and NATO allies.
We continue to do whatever it takes to give them the capacity to defend themselves.
And offering assistance with Poland's investigation into the deadly attack.
Well, when I woke up this morning, I didn't think it was that cold, but boy, did that change.
Yeah, the temperatures just seemed to get cooler and cooler as the afternoon went on, and that's just not the norm here in Florida. But WUFT's Shawn Humphrey joins us now to give us some insight about these temperatures. Shawn?
Well, temperatures in parts of north central Florida have fallen as much as 10 degrees in some areas over the last 24 hours. I'll break that down for you and show you what you can look forward to after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Well, the big story today, these highs, they didn't come around 5 p.m. like they normally do. No, they came around 2 a.m. The temperature slowly dropped as we got along throughout the day. And why? I'll tell you more later. Low, low, low. That's what we're going to see with these temperatures over the upcoming week. But temperatures slowly drop throughout the day, and they'll continue dropping through the night. Here's your hour-by-hour forecast. And I told you I'd let you know why. Well, here it is. These were the low temps Thursday morning. As you can see on our graphic here, those winds coming in from the north, and those northerly winds gave us some cold air. So it cooled down as the day went on. The wind direction changed. And we got cooler and cooler, and we'll keep getting colder as the week progresses. And moving on to tomorrow, it's going to get cloudy early on, but these temperatures are going to slowly rise up to around 59 degrees. And the high is not going to be much higher than that. We're going to see 60 degrees in Gainesville, much of north central Florida, high 50s, low 60s, and mid 60s down south around the villages. And as we look forward to Friday morning, frost is possible. Those winds from the north are going to continue, and it's going to keep getting cold, cooler, chilly, and even frigid in some areas. Not quite 32 degrees, except for Perry around 33. And we'll take a look at our 6-day forecast. I'm off, but check it out. Those temperatures getting lower. Friday, 41 degrees the low, 43 degrees the low on Saturday. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool for the rest of the week. Cool heading into next week. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Shawn. Definitely going to have to break out those winter jackets soon. But moving on to sports, the Gators women's basketball team plays against in-state rival Florida State tonight.
Yes, and after the break, WUFT's DJ McCathran will discuss the Sunshine State Showdown.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm DJ McCathran. The Gator women's basketball team travels to Tallahassee to take on the Seminoles in the Sunshine State Showdown tonight. The Gator defense has been something to fear thus far. Through 2 games, they have forced 63 turnovers, including 38 steals. The offense is just as deadly as they have outscored their opponents by 74 points. Leilani Correa leads the offense with 17 points per game. The Seminoles enter into the game as the ACC's highest scoring team with 89 points per game. They are led by Tanaya Latson, who averages 27 points per game. This will be the 84th meeting between the two teams. Florida leads the all-time series 45-38, but Florida State has won 8 of the last 10. Tip-off for this rivalry is set for 6 p.m. Men's college basketball featured some elite programs battling it out against each other last night in the State Farm Champions Classic. The first matchup was the 4th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats taking on the Michigan State Spartans. Wooden Award preseason top 50 player Oscar Tshiebwe was a monster for Kentucky in this game. 22 points along with 18 rebounds and 4 blocks really gave the Wildcats opportunities to win at the end of the game. Kentucky had the lead with just seconds left at the end of regulation and the first overtime, but Spartans head coach Tom Izzo drew up 2 big plays that kept the Spartans alive. In the second overtime, it was all Michigan State as they ran away with the 86-77 upset over the Wildcats. Next up were the reigning national champion Kansas Jayhawks taking on the 7th-ranked Duke Blue Devils. Forward Jalen Wilson dominated for the Jayhawks with 25 points and pulling down 11 rebounds. The defense for Kansas made a big difference as they had 13 blocks and 5 steals in the game. The Jayhawks pulled away late to win 69-64. Moving on to football, where another player has been dismissed from the program. Earlier today, on 3 Sports, Zach Albaverdi reported that defensive lineman DeJuan Black was dismissed from the team due to an undisclosed disciplinary reason. This comes just 16 days after Brenton Cox was dismissed from the team.
That's it for now. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us, and the PBS NewsHour is up at 7.
Have a great night.